And hey, everybody.
Hey.
I'm excited for tonight.
Yes.
It's the end of Trauma Bonds.
Oh, thank you.
Yay. And now we're going to learn how to heal.
Yes.
We've recognized the 7 stages.
Yes.
We have learned the difference between a trauma bond and actual healthy love.
Yes.
We have learned how to get out of it.
Yes.
Now we're going to learn how to heal it.
Yes. That's probably well, I suppose other than getting out of it, the most important is healing from it. Because then once you heal from it, you're less likely to get back into it.
Absolutely.
So that could be the most important thing.
Definitely.
So, yes.
So, numero uno.
Numero uno.
Acknowledge and accept.
Yes.
Recognize that you're in a trauma bond.
Mm-hmm.
Understand the relationship that you're in is characterized by those cycles of abuse,
Yep.
manipulation, and intermittent reinforcement.
Yep.
Because that's the part that grabs you, that intermittent reinforcement.
Yes. But when you are healing from it, you have to find a different type of intermittent reinforcement.
Mhm.
Something more positive, like what I was saying earlier today. Like not every day is going to be a great day.
Right.
But then when you realize, like, if it's going south, and you're like, all right, you know what? It's going to be this kind of day, but I'm going to do the best I can to keep myself out of that dark place that I would normally go to. If it's a day, you get some rejection, or, I just dropped everything. Drop the ball on a lot of things. And so I recognized it, and I'm like, from the healed standpoint, you know what, honey? Not every day is going to be a great day. It turned out to be a great day because I did that realization and realized, you know what? It's okay. You know that this is going on, so just stop, do something different, which I did, and it helped. So, yeah. Accepting.
Yeah, accept the situation. Acknowledge that relationship was harmful,
Mm-hmm.
and that the only way to heal from it is to leave it and break the bond.
Yeah, which is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that people reel on it for weeks. Now, me particularly had already kind of gone through all of the mourning, is what I called it. Mourning the relationship, mourning the coulda, the woulda, the shoulda.
Yeah.
And that was a good part of healing. But
Yeah.
I had to sit with it, notes after, yeah.
And see, me, I was trapped 25 years
Yeah.
because we weren't together. We went many years, several times, without even speaking.
Yeah.
But mentally, he was the voice in my head.
Yep.
So,
You were still attached, even though you weren't.
right.
Yeah. And I heard that voice in my head a few times, and I'm just like, nope, not anymore.
Right. So it can be difficult,
Yeah.
and-
But you're strong enough to overcome it, because if you're watching our video, you know that there's something there that needs to be healed.
right.
So, that's why we're here.
Or someone else that's going through it and you're hoping to maybe help them.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I see so many people's relationships in this.
Yeah.
I'm just like, go watch my video.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to do number 2?
Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Establish boundaries. Limit or cut off contact. This is often necessary for your well-being. Mm-hmm. Learn about healthy boundaries. Understand what boundaries are and how to set them in certain situations. And first and foremost, protect yourself. Use the boundaries to protect your mental, emotional, and physical safety. So we talk about boundaries.
When I first started seeing my therapist, and it doesn't have to do with trauma bonds, but I wanted to set a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
I had met up with a friend and went and had lunch. First time ever having lunch with a friend. She answered the phone on speaker in the middle of lunch and spoke really, really loud about things you don't, I mean, I don't care. I grew up in a nursing home, but not dinner conversation, loud in a restaurant. Well, she wanted to meet again for lunch. And so I'm seeing my therapist and I'm like, I want to set a boundary. I want to be able to ask her to not do that because that embarrassed. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
How do I do that? And I was looking for it earlier and I couldn't find it, but he printed me out a script of how to set a boundary.
Wow.
And we filled it out together, and that way I could practice it.
Nice.
That way the next time I saw her, I would know what to say and options of things to say depending on her response to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had lunch with her again. I chickened out.
Mm. Well, but since then, we've learned to set some pretty good boundaries.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, like it's easier now to set a boundary than before. Because I didn't really know what boundaries were. I knew I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what they were called.
Right.
So once I'm learning the terminology, then it's a lot easier to find answers like that.
Well, and I didn't even really know that it was an option.
Mm-hmm.
People are who they are, and that's what I was told. Well, I am who I am. If you don't like me, you can,
see you
kick
later,
rocks.
later. Yeah.
Right. So I thought you just had to accept people for who they were.
I think I had that too. Because I think being put in situations when you're younger
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have control over that. Like you don't have control over, like ours would be, we'd go over to like my dad's friend's house and we sat either on my dad's lap or we sat at wherever they were sitting next to and we were silent.
Mm-hmm.
You don't speak, you don't do, and would I probably wanted to be home playing with my Barbies? Maybe.
Right.
I like to spend time with my dad, especially when it wasn't with my brother and sister. But, I mean, like, there wasn't an option.
Right.
There just wasn't an option. What were you supposed to say?
Yeah, and that follows you
Through your
because
whole
that's all
life.
you know. And then when you get with somebody that's like your parent, it reinforces that I am who I am. If you don't like it, kick rocks. So okay,
So
I want you here.
not
so,
even knowing what boundaries were, and I didn't know what they were until my adult life.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty good at setting them. I still have some struggle with, but I give myself grace.
And now they kind of just fly out of my face. Well, like at the shop, one of the people said, "Oh, this shop is pet friendly. How pet friendly is it?
Yeah.
Can I bring my dog while I'm up here doing readings?"
Mm-hmm. And you said, as long as I don't have to be watching that dog, because it's not mine.
Yep, I'm not babysitting your dog, and I'm not stepping in shit.
Yep, or picking it up.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
If your dog is good enough to be here, then yeah. But
yeah, and you're exactly right.
Yep.
So,
So boundaries.
Boundary.
Okay, seek support.
Yes.
You want to build this is kind of I don't know about this one.
Okay.
You want to build a support system. Surround yourself with trusted friends, family members, or a support group.
Yeah.
I never had a support group.
You didn't.
And like before you, my support group consisted of my kids who are adults now, which helps.
Right.
But before they were children.
Yeah.
So I never had a support group. And so if someone had told me seek support,
You'd have said, what?
Where
would you like me to do that?
Exactly. Like I would have had no idea. I don't have anybody I can pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
If I could even force myself to pick up the phone and call someone.
Right, because you're still in that mode of Well, for me it was, I got myself in this situation. I'm not expecting anybody to get me out but me.
Right. So,
Yeah, what do you do in that situation? Well, I mean, with today, and we've talked, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you're fine.
Well, I was just going to say, because, I mean, like today, there's videos
Right.
that people, you know, we've told you guys, you can reach out to us, and we're more than happy to get with you and even, you know, a Zoom call or just interacting through messaging to give you the support that you're looking for.
Right. But yeah, they have support groups and hotline numbers, and
Yeah.
there are people that you can reach out to.
Yeah.
And the one thing I like about the idea of like the 1-800 like hotline numbers is that's a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like had I known that was an option back then,
Yeah.
I would have reached out to a stranger way sooner than I would have reached out to someone I knew.
Yeah.
But you would be surprised if you reach out to someone you know that maybe you haven't talked to in a long time or been disconnected for whatever reason. Usually the relationship is the reason.
Yeah.
And you tell them, I need help. I'm trying to get out of this, or I'm out and I'm trying to stay out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me? A lot of times they will be like, yes, we've been waiting.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
thank God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had that similar.
Yeah.
Once I was out, I'm like, okay, I'm out. Can you help me? Yep, absolutely.
Right. And
So-
even the people we know in these relationships, it's like, man, as soon as, like, we're not helping now because all the help goes to him. Like,
Yeah.
we're not helping him.
Yeah.
But as soon as she's out, we
Oh, all
got
day
her.
long. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You could consider professional help.
Yep.
Therapy can be invaluable. I loved my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I had to let him go, but I loved him.
Yeah.
When you are looking for a therapist, you want to look for a trauma-informed therapist.
Yes, please.
And I did find out, it's very interesting, CPTSD,
Mm-hmm.
being raised by a narcissist,
Yes.
and being raised in a cult. Different, but all the same type of therapy.
Okay.
So that was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I was raised by an alcoholic mother. Well, then you can see the cult guy for that. Or vice versa, because it's narcissistic control.
Yeah. It's
Which is
same-
what a trauma bond is.
Same treatment, just different scenarios or situations around it.
Right. But it's all narcissistic control,
Yeah.
which is what trauma bond is.
Yep.
So I thought that was really interesting.
And I did that EMDR therapy, and that was for PTSD. And
Well, could you explain that a little bit? Because I've always wanted to try, but never have.
well, it's just a matter of your right and your left brain communicating on a more combined level. So you people lead with their emotion or they'll lead with their logic, but a lot of the times they don't come together.
Mhm.
So as a trauma from having trauma, a childhood trauma, then you are always in the emotional state. So what EMDR does is it gives you like, this is a scenario, this is generally where it comes from, and then you kind of like, you categorize what the emotion feels like. Like there were days where I was at a 10
Mhm.
and just bawling my eyes out. And then you can do like light back and forth. I did vibration. So I held onto these little paddles, and then it would do like 30 seconds where it would be like zzz, zzz, zzz on each hand. And then after 30 seconds, it was almost like channeling.
Oh.
Because the one time I remember, and it was a memory about my mom, and I felt really horrible because she was in the hospital sick, and I was 3. I was sitting on the floor playing, not realizing the magnitude of what was going on around me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mom wasn't going to be there, and I'm just 3. I don't know any different. But it created a traumatic feeling. And in the process of the apparently it connects your logic and your emotion and interweaves it, because then like the following week I would be processing like the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the week, then I'd see her again and we'd, talk about her or whatever. But it clarified things. It made things more clear. And I was able to be like, oh, that's where that came from. Because when that paddle was going off, I would start seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
And a memory would pop up and it would resonate with what I was talking about right then. So it was kind of like going back into my childhood and picking like maybe where that started.
Okay.
So it was very, and what they say about the EMDR is generally what people go to years of therapy for, EMDR can help get you functioning as regularly as you can, as normal as you can in 8 to 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Like and that was me. When I first started, I was to the point where I was almost immobile.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was going through the motions, but my brain was just so messed up. And then I think I had 8 or 10, and I was a lot better.
Awesome.
I mean, I probably should have stayed, well, I could have stayed with it, but that was some years ago, and I mean, yeah. It was just an easier way to deal with the trauma.
Yeah.
I find that with therapy, if you find a good therapist though, because I can tell you I've been through a lot of therapists.
Same.
Between me and my kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, how do you?
Well, and that's what I was going to say too. It's important for you to find what kind of therapy works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, talk therapy is wonderful, and just them being able to get their stories out is very helpful to them.
Yeah.
But for some people, it's like, what good is it? It doesn't help me to just keep going over it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And some people are like, I'm sick of freaking talking about it because I've been going to therapy for 20 years and we're still talking about the same stories.
Yeah.
And it's like, give me something that will help me now.
Well, and that one, I had that one person be like, okay, so the saga continues. Let's, I'm like, honey, I'm not here to talk about my saga for your entertainment. I need some help. That's why I'm here.
Right.
So,
which brings another point, the right type of therapy.
Yes, absolutely.
The right therapist.
Yeah.
Because I've had some very stereotypical man with the whiskers. All he needed was the cigar and the little neck thing. And he would have been, Freud all over.
Oh.
But, and like, even my therapist that I love so much.
Yeah.
Like, I had to let him go because at the end of my sessions, I was comforting him for what had happened to me.
Yeah.
That's not a good dynamic.
No, you need someone who is
made of tougher stuff.
Capable of handling that. And I'm going to guess they probably had some of that in their own life.
Had to
have. Because how can you understand things of that magnitude unless you've been through it?
Right.
Because I don't think that's something you can teach, is it?
Well, no, but some people are that empathetic. And let's face it, my story's a tough one to listen to. If I'm watching it on a movie screen, I'd be crying.
Yeah.
So the type of therapy, the therapist,
yes,
all things to take into consideration when seeking help.
Yeah.
You want to develop coping mechanisms.
Yes. Let's see. Oh, practicing self-care. Okay, so practicing self-care, and I can tell you this from personal experience. By the time you're at that point of getting out,
Mm-hmm.
you are so down on yourself. You are so ugly to yourself. And it's difficult to move past that, to get to that point where you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, you're beautiful. And mean it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, 'cause at
have
first
to
it's-
mean it. And yeah.
At first, sometimes you have to struggle to find one good thing about you. One, yeah.
But the thing is, you have to. You have
Yeah.
to start somewhere. And I give this advice to everyone that I know. Like, you feel a certain way, stuck, stagnant, despair, just so down and out, and you have to do something. And therapy, well, they will tell you, take a shower every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you do nothing but take a shower today or brush your teeth today, you did something.
Right.
So as you look at yourself brushing those teeth, and a lot of times it was tears streaming down my eyes because I was so angry with myself. I was so upset that I allowed myself, or that I feel like I put myself, or just hated myself enough to put up with it.
Yeah.
And so that's but just one thing. You know what? Even if it's just, I'm going to put these clothes on, I'm going to look in the mirror once, and I'm going to walk away and tell myself, you know what? That's enough.
Yeah.
So just and the self-care is just, that so many different, let's give some examples of self-care.
From the very basic, well, brushing your teeth and washing your ass, you know,
Yeah.
because you do feel good coming out of a shower,
Yeah.
you know, and having a fresh mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It could be listening to music you like.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of music you like?
See, that was the other thing. For me, I always knew what kind of music I liked, but I was like you, like, oh, okay, I like jazz.
Yeah, whatever it was they liked.
I'm like, thank God I picked people that like my music. Because I'm a rocker at heart.
Right. TV shows.
TV shows, yeah. I binge watching TV shows. Like, so I wanted to ask you about that, because I would go through and like right now, Nikki's working on The Office
Mm-hmm.
for about the 5th time.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about those old TV shows or ones that you've watched before? Mine has been like Criminal Minds.
Mm-hmm.
I would sit and binge watch Criminal Minds, and now it's like, the other day I was looking for Criminal Minds. I'm like, what is it that is almost like comfort food? Or
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, yeah, I wanted to know about that, because
When Criminal Minds, I've never watched it, nor have I watched The Office.
yeah,
But I do have some that I can watch over and over again. And to me, it is a comfort thing. I know what's going to happen. I know how it's going to turn out, because I like the feely good stuff.
yeah,
Maybe there are some lessons in there that I don't remember until I see it and I remind myself. But it's a comforting thing that can play while you're doing other stuff.
like maybe a positive familiar.
Right. Because, okay, even though the house is falling down around me, or even an escape, because if he's bitching and the kids are being bad and there's a tornado going on around you of everything going on, so you're trying to focus on this show you like. Like, let me just drown it out for a minute and catch 15 minutes of my show. That's your escape. That's kind of your safe space.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why you go back to that. Maybe look at what's going on around you that you feel like you need that safe space right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was your escape.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a dork. I'm looking for the lessons and everything. So if I have a show that I find that I've learned a lot from, or I learn different perspectives from, I tend to rewatch that to remind myself of different perspectives and relearn.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Thank you. I came up with that all by myself.
Yay! Okay, so what else do we have?
Learn emotional regulation skills.
Oh,
That's a hard one.
I will tell you, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. You have to develop strategies for managing your emotions, especially when faced with triggers.
Recognize, does the emotion match the
situation?
Does my response match the situation? Because I respond, and up until 6 months ago, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I think you brought it up to me. Like, does your emotion, is that matching the situation that you're in? What? Ooh, no.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like, well, like that, the way that guy smelled, and it triggered, and I was a hot freaking mess for 30 minutes after that. And it's like, but that was, I think maybe that was the timing that you said to me. You're like, there's got to be more behind it.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, yeah.
When it dawned on me is I'm watching a man lose his shit fussing at his kids because his kid lost his shit. And I'm looking at that, and you're fussing at him, telling him he needs to calm down, but you're in a state too.
Yeah.
So you're emotionally dysregulated, telling him to emotionally regulate. He's 10.
Yeah.
You're 30.
Yeah. Who's the parent here?
Right. Which, I mean, my ex told me one time, like, you can't punish your kids when you're mad at them. My response was, the only reason I want to punish my kid is because I'm mad at them. So how do you I couldn't fathom separating the two. Like, well, if I'm not pissed off, why would I want to punish them?
Right.
Because they pissed me off, because they didn't mind or whatever.
Yeah. See, that's reactive discipline, and I always proactive discipline.
You beat them before they did the bad thing?
Put the fear of God in them early.
You know, my mama always said, I never understood it, there's nothing wrong with a good, healthy fear of mama. I'm like, well, don't worry, honey, you got that covered.
Well, yeah. Well, and we had this conversation, and not that we're going to get into parenting or anything, but I had this conversation with my daughter the other day, because she talked about eventually having kids and, you know, wanting this and that and whatever. But I told her, I've always been a proactive parent, but boundaries. You have to have, as children have to have boundaries and limitations. And if not for any other reason, just so that they hear no once in a while.
Right.
Or you can't do it because of this. You know, like, I want to go out and, you know, run around the streets. It's 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
But if that's the first time they ever hear no from you, they're going to be like, but you let me do everything else. Well, You know, if it's 6 o'clock at night after dinner and you want to go out and play, no, not tonight. And you know what I mean? So
Right.
again, I didn't have those. Well, I guess I did have boundaries like that when I was younger. We had to be in when the streetlights were on. That's a boundary.
Yeah.
We had very distinct, solid boundaries. My dad whistled.
Mm.
The whole, like, if you didn't hear it, you were outside the boundary.
Yeah.
So you could only go so far enough to hear your dad whistle. And I'll tell you, we heard him whistle blocks away.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, okay.
Well, and what you said reminded me, these trauma bonds it doesn't have to be just romantic relationships.
True.
I was trauma bonded to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
could be more than just romantic
any
relationships.
kind of narcissistic relationship,
Yeah.
period. I mean, and with your parents, you don't really have, and mine were not narcissistic whatsoever. Like, my dad was just old school.
Right. Yeah, we all had those boundaries.
Yeah. So.
But you have to be able to recognize your emotions, which I had no idea. We got the emotion wheel. Like, I had to learn what the emotions were.
Mm-hmm.
So there is nothing wrong with starting from zero.
Yeah.
I was so completely disconnected from my body and my emotions.
Yeah.
There was, I'm not pissed, I'm pissed, or I'm sad. That was my three emotions.
Yeah.
So learn, if you have to go that far back to basics,
Yeah.
look on the computer, print out an emotion wheel.
Yep.
And see what it is you are feeling.
And that was with the therapy that I went through, that list.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I'm in my 40s and just learning about this stuff.
Right.
But, and we talked earlier, because the other part of that is disassociating.
Mm-hmm.
When you have those things happen to you, it's kind of like trying to watch that TV show with all of this going on around you. You find your safe space and you shut down. And then, I mean, maybe I missed that chapter on boundaries, or maybe I missed that chapter on, emotional regulation because I was shut down, worried about this or trying to get through this part of it.
But those weren't things that were modeled to us.
No.
So how could we learn those?
That's true.
Like, I spent my time, I know Mama's footsteps,
Mm-hmm.
her breathing. If she sighed, we were all in for it.
Yeah.
You stay so focused on the minutia.
Yeah.
The wind changed. Ooh,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
It smells different in here.
because
Something.
they were so emotionally dysregulated. It would take anything or nothing to have them fly off the handle.
Yeah.
So how could you learn emotional regulation
Mm-mm.
when you're raised by someone that is the extreme opposite of that?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Well, that your emotional regulation consists of walking on eggshells and
Right.
being that hypersensitive to everything.
Well,
That becomes your normal emotional state.
and disassociating and shutting your emotions off. Because if you showed emotion, it heightened their emotion even more.
Yeah.
So our regulation was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
But then when something got us,
Oh, then it was all over.
yeah,
all over
the spew, the lava flow.
yeah. When it wasn't necessarily that situation.
Right. Because usually the people that caught it did not deserve it.
Yeah.
And I saw a thing today. It made me cry. It was a mom. I'm going to get emotional. Looking at her adult son and apologizing to him, asking his forgiveness because she made him a container for her rage.
She made him a container.
She was a single mom,
Yeah.
and the dad was gone, pissed. I've got to work and support the house and support the family. And I took all that out on my kids.
Oh, wow.
My kids became containers for my rage.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do that, and we don't even realize we do that.
Mm-mm. I can think of a couple of times where I did that with my kids.
Yeah.
I've apologized since then, though.
Good. Yay. Me
Yeah,
too.
good. And then, yeah, and you've taught me about that. Like, not that I wasn't compassionate about my kids or how I raised them, but the way that I talk to them sometimes, you reminded me that I can be, what is it you say?
Defensive.
I can get defensive, but I am
Dismissive.
dismissing their emotions and
Yeah.
how they feel about the scenario, and that's really changed my relationship with them quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. Real bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you've helped me to realize it was from, I had defensive wounds that weren't
Right.
healed yet.
But you learned those, and then you recognized your emotions behind it.
Yep,
You learned how to regulate those emotions,
exactly.
which made you capable of making space for your children to come to you
Mm-hmm.
and airing their grievances.
Yeah.
And being able to validate them.
Mm-hmm.
So this healing doesn't just help us.
Right.
It helps our kids as well, and anybody else who's
Yeah, it
Close
can
to
help with
us.
a spouse, or eventually there'll be another person in my life, or well, hopefully sooner than later. There'll be someone in your life, and like that's gonna be the real. I don't want to say test, because I don't think it's a test. I think it's a matter of just our, this whole spiritual awakening that we're going through. It's a matter of returning to our own unique selves and becoming one with who we truly are. And then, but when you find that other person, like the red flags, or I don't know, the next person's just gonna have to, I don't even know.
I see it kind of as my legacy,
Yeah.
because so much of the stuff that I'm healing my mother's trauma,
Yeah.
because she put it all on me.
Yep.
Well, and my siblings.
Yep.
So I'm healing ancestral trauma.
Yep.
My own trauma. In doing so, I'm being an example for my kids and my grandkids. So I'm also healing my descendants' trauma, so that they have less to heal,
Moving
hopefully.
forward, yeah.
And so I've been hearing a lot about legacy from men, but about legacy lately. And it's like, what do you want your legacy to be? A pattern of healing is what I want my legacy to be.
Yeah.
Because hopefully my kids will have to heal less than me, and my grandkids will have to heal less than them, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And so it starts here,
Yeah.
being able to name your emotions, recognize them within yourself, and how to manage them.
Yeah.
And stay regulated.
Yeah. And even redefining some of them.
Absolutely. And, find when you are stressed and have anxiety, find a way to, they use cope. I don't so much like coping mechanisms.
It like, for me, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Right.
Just because you're coping with it.
I feel like that's
you're
another
just
way of
living.
repressing.
Yeah, you're just living.
Yeah, but find healthy ways of dealing with those issues rather than repressing or exploding or what have you.
Yeah.
Okay, this looks like a good time to stop.
Stop. Oh, sorry.
collaborate and listen. No, okay.
Something like that.
And then we will catch you on the YouTube.
Yep, and
For
we will
part
see
2.
you. Yeah, thanks for the follows and the likes and the shares.